Now, if you see the final application, when we mouse over, we have this nice shadow effect, as well as whenever we click on update and update any of the field, let's say these streets, update user, you can see this is highlighted for 2 seconds, and then that's how you can easily identify which user is currently updated. So let's add that functionality. So inside the application, let me open CSS and I will add a CSS class here. So I will add this shadow hover. So by default, we'll add transition. So we'll have smooth shadow effect. And then when we mouse over that, we'll see that box shadow. So let's use this shadow hover effect inside the list. So where is our list? User list. So for this particular card, we can add this shadow hover. So let's use class name shadow hover. So if I go to the final application, and mouse over, you can see we have this nice shadow effect. So this shadow effect here, this transition is useful. So if I remove this transition, you can see it's quick, that shadow is displayed quicker, which does not look good. So by adding that transition, so it will take 0.2 seconds before showing that shadow. So you can see this is a nice hover effect. Now let's add that functionality of highlighting a particular card once we update that. So how do we do that? So for that, we can use the state property of use location. So I can use location. By default, whenever you are using routing, you will get some state property. So let's see what it contains. So anytime you want to share some information with the route, next route when you are using navigate, you can use this state property to find out or pass the more information. So I will print this state. So this is on the list page. So if I refresh, you can see by default there is no state, but I can pass that more information while navigating user. So how we are navigating from the user form, we are using navigate method here. So this is during add user and this is during update user. So during update, I can pass more information. So I can call it state. You can see there is a state property, and here I can pass highlighted user ID. So which will be the ID of that particular user. So this is the ID that we are getting from parameter. So that ID we are passing. Now, if we save this and refresh this, initially you will not see that because this state is still null. But if I click on this, let's say update, and from this I will just click on update user. You can see now the state contains that particular object. So highlighted user ID and the actual user of that particular actual ID of that particular user. So this we can use to identify or add a highlighting part in any of the particular card. So how can we get this? So we are already getting this in this particular state dot highlighted user ID. So how can we add this particular? So we want to hide that highlight after 2 seconds. So if I click and update user, you can see after 2 seconds that highlighting goes. So we need to do that inside the use effect. So whenever the state property of that changes, so let's add use effect. So you will better understand. So whenever state dot highlighted user ID changes, or if there is state, so let's add state here, and here we can check if state dot highlighted user ID exists, then we want to do something. So what we want to do something, we want to set the highlighted user. So I can say, so instead of user ID, I'll just say ID, and this will be that user ID. So user ID is of type string, or it can be undefined. So by default, it will be undefined. So now we can set this set highlighted ID. So here I will set this highlighted ID, which is state dot highlighted user ID. So this user ID we are setting. So if it exists, so initially by default we have seen state is null. So in that case, this code will not execute. Whatever is inside if will not execute. So here we are setting that, and after 2 seconds we want to remove that highlight. So from this particular function, so here I can add set timeout. Let's say after 2 seconds, I will set this highlighted ID again back to undefined. So now you might have got the idea why we are doing it. So we are setting it initially with the whatever ID coming, and then after 2 seconds we are setting it to undefined. So while that 2 seconds is going on, we can use this highlighted ID to specify or add that particular shadow effect for that individual card. Also, whenever you are using set timeout or set interval, it's also always good to add a cleanup function. So I will store here let interval, and I will store this interval here. So set timeout returns, I can call it timeout, not interval. So when you are using set interval, we can call it interval. Now I will clear timeout. So this we can define as a zero value. So it can be any value. We don't know what the value that comes, but you can initialize with some value. And when the component unmounts or we redirect to another component, we clear that timeout. So within 2 seconds, if you switch to different component, that timeout will be cleared out. So that is always a good practice. Now let's add the CSS class highlight shadow. So using this class, we can add a box shadow for that particular card. So we need to conditionally add this highlight shadow class. So here for this particular card, we can conditionally add. So how to conditionally add? We can convert into JSX. And here I can say if highlighted ID, so this highlighted ID state is equal to whatever user we are iterating over, user.id, then we can add that class. So what is the class? Highlight shadow. So this class we can add it here. Otherwise, we will not add any class. So if that highlighted ID equals to user.id, then we'll add that shadow. Otherwise, we'll not add that shadow. So you can, before trying, you can also try it here. So you can directly add that particular class. So inside here, we can add this highlighted shadow. You can see the highlighted shadow effect is displayed. So let's refresh this page. Not here, here. So let's refresh this page. And now let's try it out. So you can see we are getting error. Cannot read properties of null reading highlighted user ID. This is coming on line number 24. Line number 24. Here we are getting this. So as we have seen, state is initially null. So here you can see state is null. So you cannot access any of the property of null. So here you can use optional chaining operator. So just add a question mark, and if we refresh, now we can see. Now we can see we don't have any error. So now let's verify the highlighting functionality. So I close this and let's click on edit for Olivia. Let's click on update something and click on update it. You can see it is updated, but we don't see that highlighted. So if it is the final application, when I click on update user, we see this highlighted. But in our case, if we try, let's update this, you can see we don't see that highlighted. So there is some bug. So I have purposefully added that bug. So you will know how to debug this application. So in the next video, we'll debug it from scratch. So in any application, it's very important, not just writing code, but also debugging why something is not working. In the next video, we'll completely debugging from scratch. So you'll better understand whenever there is any large application, how to debug. So see you in the next video.